Good morning. Today we're going to be doing a little mod on the FJ Cruiser. So I've had this thing now almost a year and I love it. You know, as far as an off-road vehicle, it does everything I want, goes anywhere I want. It did need some good BF Goodrich all-terrains, and we got those on it. The only other thing that would make me comfortable being out, 30 miles from the nearest cell phone signal, and many miles to the nearest road, is a winch. So today we're going to be putting this bumper and winch pan into this and putting this winch into it. It's an Engo 10,000 pound winch. They're pretty good quality winches, and the bumper is a US Offroads bumper. I chose that bumper because it actually makes use, it doesn't have a bull bar, it just is the bumper replacement and the winch pan, and it allows you to keep pretty much the stock look and feel of a Toyota, and it also weighs about half as much as other replacement bumpers that I looked at, less than half actually, and quite a bit of them, and still is pretty good quality. Okay, it's got 1/4-inch steel for the entire winch pan. It's got a lot of reinforcing and stuff like that. So those other bumpers that actually weighed twice as much or more, if you look at them, they use 3/16 inch, some places 1/8 inch steel, and just not where I wanted to go for this. So I was going for something a lot more solid, a lot more dependable, less weight, and I think that US Offroads bumper I think it's going to fit the ticket just fine. Just take the grill off so you can get down to some of the innards and take the rest of the bumper and stuff off. There are a couple of pins on each side like that. Just put a screwdriver under them, pop them up, and then a couple of bolts. And other than that, there are on the grill itself a couple of points you can see down here where they have plastic inserts that lock them in. So we'll take the pins out, bolts out, and then take the grill out. Now this looks like a fairly simple installation. There's lots of room down in there except for one thing. I don't know if you can see that right there. This is the air conditioning line, and for some reason Toyota, who did a fantastic job on overall engineering of this thing otherwise, made that line go right down in the middle of this space that we're going to need for the winch box down in there. So that line is going to have to be relocated, and I'm hoping that's not going to be too big a deal, but we'll see when we get down to it. Now the grill is off. You can get to the bumper cover itself, and on the bumper cover there are 3 plastic pop-ups already out here along the top that are just like the plastic pop-ups on each side of the top of the grill. You just put a screwdriver under them, pop them up, come right up. There are 2 bolts on the front of the fender well that secure the bumper cover to the fender well, and up underneath there's 6 of these 10mm bolts. You can see them along the bottom that all have to come out. Then the bumper cover can come off. So once you get the bumper cover off, you can get to just about everything else. On the bumper cover, on inside of the fender well, in addition to the bolts on each side, there's one that goes on each side that bolted it in that you just removed. There's also a plastic pin that you'll notice right below it. That plastic pin, you can put a screwdriver under it, pop the head out, but you need to grab the bumper cover and pull it back and then out to the side and gently, and you can keep from breaking this little plastic tab here. Easy enough to replace, but better if you don't have to. So after you get the bumper cover off, you can get to a lot more. And this, I've already got the pins popped out on the other part of the grill here. So there's only a couple of those plastic pins. The easiest way to do those is just stick a little screwdriver on top of the point there, push them back down in so you can just pull them right out. And that's part of the part that you're not going to need anymore. The next thing to do is take off the stock bumper tube. See, there's 3 bolts there, I think are 14 millimeter, and another one there. So 4 on each side that have to come off. This thing will take off, and this is what is actually going to be replaced by our US Offroad's winch pan bumper. And our air conditioning line, now that we can get to it and see it, I don't know how hard that's going to be to modify, but we'll see, and we'll have to dry fit that bumper some, I guess, to make sure we don't have any interferences. If the air conditioning line rubs against that hard bumper, it's going to eventually, fray and leak. So you don't want that. So what I did is I took the old bumper tube off, the stock bumper tube, and I dry fit the new one up. And as you can see right here, US Offroads has cut a little divot out of the, they cut a slot here in the winch box itself for the air conditioning line, but it's still going to be an interference right here. So what I'm going to have to do is move this mount and bend the tube back. I'm going to try to just pop this mount off and see if I can mount it up on the top about 1 inch further back. Ought to do it, 1.25 inches. Okay, so that was easier than I thought. You can see on the mount where it was mounted out to, and now I've got the new bumper all snugged up, and you can see there's plenty of space there for this thing where it won't rub. I'm going to cut some fuel line to stick in this area right here and tie wrap it on just to give it a little extra cushion, and that ought to do it for that. I was surprised at how much easier that air conditioning line was to bend than what I thought. It doesn't take a whole lot of bending to it, but it's fairly malleable and pretty easy to bend where you want to put it. So I don't think you really need a trip to the AC shop to do that. And hopefully that'll do it. I'm going to have to take this bracket off, drill a new hole in here for the AC line support, and then put that back in. But other than that, I may also have to, we'll dry fit the winch in here and make sure. I dry fitted in the bumper already, but we'll stick it in and see if I suspect I'm going to have to trim off the end of this bracket too, but we'll see. Okay, so you can kind of see in here what I did with the air conditioning line. I've got it basically fitted up where I think it needs to run and bent. And I took a section of 1/4 inch fuel line and split it down the middle and used that to wrap around this fuel line to give it a little more, a little more protection if it should vibrate and rub on either the chassis itself or down here on the new bumper. Yeah, it'll give it a little bit more protection at least, and I'll feel a little bit better about it. Well, after dry fitting up the Engo winch, I made sure that the little clutch lever here has lots of free play. I don't have to cut off this bracket for the AC support line, so I'm just going to leave that alone as it is. I may have to open this back up and cut it off in the future for some other reason here, but right now, looks just fine. So, works fine. Everything has plenty of clearance, and after fitting up the winch itself, I decided to make this the permanent mount. It's got a Haas type fairing because it's a synthetic rope. I went ahead and mounted that up there. The winch itself, on the Engo winch, your winch may be different, whatever winch you use, but mine mounts up underneath. So you can see the mounts on the bottom. There's one right here, and one over here, but the two front ones are way the heck inside here. So, and on the bumper, there's a cleverly built a nice little brush guard of heavy gauge steel on the bottom of the bumper to actually give it just a little bit more of the bull bar effect before it hits the skid plate up underneath the engine. So that's a good thing, but it makes it a bear to mount. So I got everything fitted up on the screws themselves to the bolts inside the Engo winch, and I decided to make that the permanent mount. So now I'm going to be mounting up the instead of just having the bumper snugged up there, I'm going to go ahead and put the permanent mounts on there and call that permanent, and put back in my little bar that was across here, across the engine support bar, and put that back. That, by the way, that came off with just 3 bolts, you know, just 10 millimeter bolts like the rest of the bumper assembly here for the most part. Very easy to take off and really facilitated putting a mount in. So that, you know, if you're looking for the easiest way to do it, you know, that's a little bit more tear down on the bumper, but really, really easy. US Offroad only shipped this for the hardware, mounting hardware. You reuse all the parts that came with the OEM parts on the FJ Cruiser, and they give an extra pretty heavy duty bolt and washer and these plates, so you get the maximum amount of area here. So I'm going to be, I'll take this bolt back off that I had snugged up there and put the 2 plates in on each side, and then put these bolts in. There's already a threaded hole right here that Toyota provided on the FJ Cruiser just for this particular type of bumper, which is very, very nice of them, I guess. But mine was pretty much full of mud and debris and crap like that from fording rivers and, you know, sloshing through mud and, you know, places I probably shouldn't be without a winch. And it, you know, it needed a bit of cleaning out with WD-40. But I'll be mounting these up, torquing them down to the specs that US Offroad calls for, and then the bumper part will be finished. After that, it's just a matter of doing some modifications on the bumper cover and mounting it back up and putting everything back together. So I found out after getting the Engo winch all mounted up in the winch bucket and getting everything situated in there, found out that I had to take the thing back out, which was kind of a pain since it mounts up underneath, as I mentioned before. The solenoid box right here could not be connected. It basically straps to the 2 rods on the top and tightens down by these screws in the back. I could not get the thing up and on there with the winch already mounted in the winch bucket. So at that time, at least I had this center bar still removed. I'm glad I did that. That definitely was the easiest way to do the winch mounting and the winch bucket mounting. So had to take everything out, get the winch back out, get the solenoid box mounted on, get everything mounted back up, and then I found out that I've got 2 cables up underneath the winch is where they connect. The negative battery cable right here, and a little black cable that's the negative ground for the solenoid box. Both mount to a terminal on the bottom of the winch. So had to pull the whole thing out again, which is a pain, as I mentioned, because of the way this Engo winch mounts up down there. And make those connections, put everything back together. But at least once back together, I found that the cables themselves, easy enough to run. There's a hole right here where this radiator line comes back through the chassis, and it's already got packing in it. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but I didn't have to cut any holes to run the 2 battery leads through. There's plenty of room there for them, and it's already got this packing in there to protect that pipe from the edges of the chassis where it goes through. And now the 2 battery cables run through that same box, or same hole, with the grommet packing between them and the chassis, so they should be protected very well. So all that's left to do here is just zip tie the cables down real good, and there was actually plenty of cable to run up to the battery In fact, I'd wrapped it around the battery. There was that much excess. I didn't want to cut any off and ruin the factory lugs. So got it all hooked up, tested it out, and everything works good. So from here on, it's just a matter of bolting back up to front, kind of the way I took it apart. So before you can put the bumper cover back on, it's going to need some modifications. Here's my helper. He's been supervising all day. So the silver panel that goes on over the lower part here, it just unbolts. There's 6 bolts in the back. You can unbolt it, and then there's tabs push through here to take that thing off, and then it'll not be used anymore. But this section right here, the center section, this just that black strip that's in there now where the silver panel was, is where the new bumper fits. So that has to be cut out. So what I plan to use is an oscillating tool. The instructions say you can use snips or a Dremel tool or pretty much anything, razor knife. Oscillating tool works pretty good for me, so I'm going to try that and modify the bumper to stick it back up there. Okay, so that's the bumper cover. After I cut it, I used a oscillating cutoff tool to cut it out with, and worked just about perfect. I did have to come back, like the instructions said, and cut out just a tad more right in this area, right in here. Okay, and same thing on the other side, so that it would actually snap behind the front part of the new bumper hitch and sit in there just perfectly. So one of the other things I had to do is one of the mount points for the bumper cover underneath is missing on the old grill, or the old bumper rather. It was right here, that you mounted the 2 outside ones on, and those points under there, well, technically I guess they wouldn't have to be bolted up. I just secured it with a couple of washers and a couple of small bolts, and it's just fine. So that is installation done. Got all my cables zip tied and in place in there, and hopefully everything still works. And we'll put the grill back on and call it a done day. And that's the after, with the grill back installed, everything hooked up, everything mounted up, everything bolted up, all nice and tight, and tested out and done. So it took me all afternoon. It took me a good 5 hours, I'd say, to do everything. But then I'm a newbie that, I'm not used to taking my car apart and doing stuff like that, especially on body work. So for a guy that's, got any kind of experience doing this kind of stuff at all, you can maybe knock it out in 2 or 3 hours. Shouldn't be a big deal at all.